Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Today's service, what if I only had 30 days to love, is being presented by the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA, via Zoom, on this Side with Love Sunday 2022. Let us begin with the call to worship from our association's president, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray.
Welcome, dear ones, to this Side with Love Sunday. This worship service is the capstone to this year's 30 Days of Love, which is our annual opportunity to collectively nurture our spirits, deepen our understanding, and side with love by living out our values as we work together for collective liberation. As we head into 2022, I know your hearts are tired. My heart is tired. Here we are 2 years into this global pandemic that has taken so many lives and caused so much isolation and hardship for all of us, but especially for those who were already impacted by systemic inequity and oppression. Our elected officials continue to fail to pass national legislation to ensure voting rights, a strong social safety net for the most vulnerable, and support for struggling communities, businesses, and families. Culture wars and disinformation over everything from vaccines to abortion to critical race theory are everywhere. Too often it feels overwhelming and impossible. And yet when my heart feels heavy, I pause and I think about all of you, my Unitarian Universalist siblings around the world who continue to show up every day in 1,000 ways to manifest love in the world. When congregations are providing sanctuary for immigrants or sheltering refugees, I am hopeful. When networks of UUs partner with people in Texas to access abortion care, I feel filled with hope. And when hundreds of volunteers bring their skills to organize together through our Side with Love squads and organizing school cohorts, I am filled with hope. When UUs put their bodies on the line in direct action with water protectors, or Black Lives Matter, or the Poor People's Campaign, I am filled with hope. Because I feel our power and I know that hope grows from being in the struggle and from being in the work of love and justice. So however you come to the work of being human right now, exhausted, frustrated, angry, generous, inspired, on fire, focused, despondent, struggling, passionate, however you come to the work of being human right now, as you are willing, as you are able, I invite you to bring your spirit, to open your heart and to lean into the callings of love and justice, and lean into the power and strength of your wider faith community, of all of us as Unitarian Universalists. You are welcome here in Unitarian Universalism. You are precious. Your work and your life and your heart and your shared faith has the power to heal and connect and sustain us, even in the midst when we are all collectively experiencing so much exhaustion in this time. In that spirit, in the spirit of our collective strength and power, I invite you into this time of worship. I invite you into this time to slow down, to remember that we are all in this together, that this is no time to go it alone. to slow down and remind ourselves of the vision of a world made whole, in which all people are free and thriving. May this worship be a blessing to your spirit, just as you are a blessing to this world. Come, let us worship together.
Grace and peace to you. What a joy and an honor it is to have this opportunity to share with each of you on this sturdy day of love service. I am so blessed to share with you in song, and as we sing these particular songs and melodies, we reminisce on the matriarchs and patriarchs who really embodied the spirits of these spirituals hymned from what we know as the blues. The blues were simply songs about life and some of the things that various individuals would have to endure as they continue to live through life's journey. Journey with me from 1619, when the first slave ship landed in Jamestown, Virginia. There, that slave ship boat being called Jesus. There, individuals who were the strongest of the strongest, bound knee, foot, ankle, hand together as they traveled through the Middle Passage to an unknown land. But thanks be to the Almighty that sustained them. And from their experiences there from Virginia, as they build the South and as they continue to make progress, they were called to do certain things, those things that allow for them to have to work from can't see in the morning until can't see at night and laboring tirelessly. But it was the songs and the music that was birthed through those experiences that gave to them hope, that gave to them love. That same music was then translated through the 1960s, the 1619s and the 1700s and 18th century down to the 19th century, even when we get to the Jim Crow South. As we sing these songs, it is important that we understand the content and context of them. This first song is Hush, Listen, Somebody's Calling My Name. Could that somebody be justice? Could that somebody be love, freedom? Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Join with me in hymn number 1040, singing the journey. Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, listen, somebody's calling my name. Hush, listen, somebody's calling my name. Hush, listen, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Well, it sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Well, it sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like freedom. Well, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Well, it sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Well, it sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Well, and soon one morning, death come creeping in my room. Oh, soon one morning, death come a creeping in my room. Soon one morning, death come a creeping in my room. Oh my Lord, shall I do? Well, now I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. Oh, I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Yes.
Before we touch the match, before the chalice is lit, we remember the potential for the flame is always there. Even when the wick is stiff, the wax smooth and solid, the candle remembers what it is to burn. Because once you have been on fire, you will always remember how you were on fire once. And some part of you will always know all it would take is one spark for the flame to leap and dance again, for you to burn clear and bright in the soft velvet darkness. The potential for more love, too, is always there. Even when the losses are too great to bear, the weariness bone deep and stretching forward and backward through time and the generations, the heart remembers what it is to love. Because once you have been in love with a person, a patch of earth, a vision of freedom for your children's children, you will always remember how you were loved, how you were love once. And all it would take is one connection, one act of grace or selfless courage for you to be loved back into being, clear and bright, abundantly, fiercely, lovingly alive.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in the saying of our church's Affirmation of Covenant and the humming of Doxologies of our last What? Love is the doctrine of this church.
The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in unity, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Please be seated. Let songs of hope and faith alive. Let's stop that.
Below the skies, let songs of faith and
Excuse me. Let's start this again. Okay? Oh, we don't know. Let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill, and these songs. By every tongue, make glorious by Universalist Church of Cruces. We welcome those of you who are in our sanctuary this morning, as well as those who are joining us via streaming technology. I am Haney Pearson, your service associate this morning. We are currently without a minister, so we are proceeding with late services and are delighted that the UUA has prepared this service. Unitarian Universalism has no creed, no
recording in progress.
Okay, it's a hybrid service, and it's going to be a little different. Okay.
It's probably a blessing they didn't record that first part anyway. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of like relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms, as everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church and check the events calendar at our website, UUCLC.org. If you are visiting with us today, we'd like to meet you. If you are in the sanctuary, please rise in body and or spirit. Wait for a microphone and then speak into the microphone to introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you are from, and how you heard about our church. Do we have any visitors in the sanctuary this morning?
My name is Diane Herseth, and I am from South Dakota. We have one UU church in the state, and it's 200 miles from me. So whenever I travel, I try to go to a UU church.
Anyone?
You can see us online anytime, actually.
That would be great.
Thank you. We are pleased that you have joined us today. If you are joining us through Zoom, you may introduce yourself by turning on your microphone and your camera. Are there any visitors joining us via Zoom?
I'm having issues with getting people in. I'm sorry, everyone.
Okay. We are having issues getting people in, so we apologize for that. But we are pleased that you have joined us today for our service. Please fill out a visitor's card in the lobby or leave your email in the Zoom chat box so we can invite you to other services and activities at the church. Following this service, there will be time to fellowship with one another during our BYOB coffee hour. The Hospitality Committee, with a focus on keeping us all healthy, has foregone serving refreshments. But you may enjoy conversation outside in the fresh air. Those joining us via Zoom need only to stay where you are, and you will be able to converse with one another. I have several announcements this morning. From Katie Fitzgerald, my friends, the auction is coming. On Saturday, May 7th, Derby Day, we will celebrate a day at the races with bidding on silent and live auction items, enjoying food and drink, and having a great time. Put it on your calendar, Saturday, May 7th, from 5 to 9, and yes, we will be Zooming. There are still some spaces in the new UU classes being offered in March. If you are new or not so new to our UUCLC community, this class is for you. Join us to get to know more about Unitarian Universalism and our church, facilitated by the Reverend Nancy J. Anderson, Minister Emerita. Times are Sundays at 11:30 from March 13th through April the 3rd, or Thursdays at 5 through 7 p.m. from March 10th through the 31st. Call or email the church office to register. Today's roundtable presenter is our own Scott McLaughlin, Executive Director of Spaceport America. Please join us via Zoom at 2 p.m. today for an update on development at Spaceport America. Please see Cherry's week at a glance from Monday or Friday UUCLC worship service announcement for the roundtable Zoom link. Our last announcement. COVID-19 cases are decreasing in Doña Ana County, but remain higher than many other counties in New Mexico. The case positivity rate is still high at 26%, suggesting that actual cases are undercounted. Hospitalizations are also decreasing, but death rates continue to rise. Under the newly announced Center for Disease Control guidelines, our county is rated at medium risk. For these reasons, the Board of Trustees has voted to continue our indoor mask requirement and our temporary suspension of food and drink during times of fellowship. We will continue to monitor the situation closely for when we move into the new low-risk CDC classification. Thank you for your patience in doing your part to keep our congregation and community as safe as possible. Thank you all for being with us today.
Hi, my name is Lauren Wyeth, and I have a story for everyone, small and big. And it's kind of a small story about a small thing that my son invented. And at first I thought that maybe it was too small of a story to share here. But Adrienne Marie Brown is a big thinker and writer with a big heart and a big imagination and big ideas. And she says, small is good. Small is all. And I think that's true about this lesson that my son taught me. So here's the story. When Ames was very small, oh my goodness, he was such a cuddly kid. He had a lot of big feelings and he was very expressive. But sometimes when he would get hurt or frustrated, those big feelings would be too much for him and he would get overwhelmed by them. And he wouldn't want to be around anybody. So he'd run off on his own and hide rather than let anybody help him. He'd rather be somewhere where no one could find him and know how upset he was than have someone witness what he was feeling. It was almost like if somebody saw how he felt, it made the big feelings even harder for him to bear. So this one time I saw Ames fall and get hurt and go off on his own. And I wanted to help, but I didn't want to intrude. So I went over to where he was and sat a few feet away from him and asked as gently as I could, "Hey, Ames, could I give you a little hug?" And he said no by shaking his head. But then without saying anything else, he turned and moved a little toward me and he went like this. And I took my pointer finger and reached back toward his. And we sat like that for a minute with our fingers touching until he was ready to talk. He didn't want a big response. He didn't want a lot of attention. He didn't want everyone coming over and giving him advice, trying to help in a loud way. He just needed this small gesture, this finger meeting finger. We needed to start there. So this small act became a thing between us that helped us over and over again as Ames was growing up. And it didn't just help him, it helped me too. I remember one time when I was quite sick and I'd been in bed for a couple of days and I was not even really feeling well enough to talk. And I heard the door open and Ames crept into my room. And then I felt a little finger on my finger. And he stayed there beside me for a few minutes. And that was the most comfort that I had felt during that whole time I'd been sick. It was so sweet that he showed up in that way with that little act of love. And then when he got older, when he was a teenager, sometimes we couldn't seem to agree on just about anything. But if we were in the middle of a conflict and one of us would go like this, the other one would always reach back. It was like we had this unspoken pact that if someone did this, you had to meet them there. You had to match that little act of love. You had to slow down. We had to remember that, of course, we love each other. Of course, we're on the same team. Of course, we can get through this. We can figure it out together. That little act was really a helpful starting point for us many times. Small is good. Small is all. That's true in a lot of situations. It's true in our justice work too, for example. When big things, really big things, aren't fair or right in the world, we might think that a small act doesn't have that much importance or isn't that useful. We think bigger is better. Of course, we want love and liberation right now. You know, we want a world where everyone knows they're loved and shows love for the earth and the animals and one another. But in our big world, there are so many ways we are not all free. We don't all have what we need. We don't all feel like we belong. There are so many things that need fixing that it's tempting to lose hope, to believe that there aren't enough people who care, that the amount of love that I have to give won't be enough, won't make a difference. How can I do anything that's going to help anyway? We can't use love, it is true, to heal an illness. We can't just use love to magically clean a polluted river. Love isn't going to just change unfair laws or remove barriers that make it hard for people to vote. But remember, small is good, small is all. So there's no way to really better understand that than by watching what a small act of love can do. Because acts of love make hard things easier to bear. Like a tiny pointer finger that connects us to one other person and reminds us that we're not alone. Acts of love connect us to other people and those connection points. That's where the magic is. That's where the energy and potential lives. So I want to ask you, what's the very smallest loving action you can think of? The very smallest, the smaller the better. If you're with other people right now, or if you are online together, maybe you can share your ideas out loud or in the chat. I know we want a whole world full of abundant love everywhere for everyone, but if we were to do just the smallest loving action, what would it be? The smaller, the better. Maybe you'd be willing to take one of those small actions and commit to it. Maybe you'd be willing to do that small action every single day for a week, or maybe even for 30 days to get a real streak going. And then you would find, I'm sure, that that small daily act has a much bigger impact than you would have imagined. The first day you might think, that was way too easy. What's the big deal? I should do something bigger. I'm not even sure I want to do this little thing every day. It seems insignificant, but just wait and see. Stay with the small. Small acts of love don't stay small. They expand and they grow and they spread. Dr. Cornel West says, justice is what love looks like in public. But love doesn't start in public. Love starts between you and me. Small is good. Small is all. Let's start there.
One of the ways we support one another in community is through the sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones. In these challenging times, it is crucial that we make attempts to stay connected to one another. Our church's website has a link which allows you to confidentially submit a joy, sorrow, or milestone. If you would like your submission shared with the caring team and or the congregation. If anyone here has a brief joy, concern, or milestone they wish to share, please raise a hand, wait for a microphone, speak into the microphone, and remember that this is not a time for announcements.
Thanks, Haney. I'm going to try to talk fast because I want to keep it brief, but it was really apparent. There were events, major events, within the past week that really changed things a lot. And this, I think the people who prepared this service from afar, pre-recorded, and they were very meaningful, and it was very wonderful musical performance and everything, but it feels a little out of tune with how things are right now. After the events of this past week, they've changed a lot. I just wanted to say that. I think my feelings about things probably were attuned to the way they felt before, but I'm in a different place now.
Good morning. I have both a joy and a milestone. My joy is that last week my son called me and he said, "Dad, we're going to have another baby." Which means that I'm going to be another grandfather. And the milestone is that I think this is the last of my 6 grandkids that I'll have as biological grandkids. So that's the milestone.
This piggybacks on what Mark was saying. James sent an email and was quite concerned about a family that he knows in,
I have it.
oh, you have it? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I don't want to be redundant.
Hi, I'm Lynn Pearson. Today's kind of a special day, and I want to thank Adam Huerta, who's back on the sound system and operating Zoom and everything else all by himself for the first time. And this has been a difficult service. So I hope you appreciate that he's doing his best, and maybe the each service will be a little easier.
You can hope, right?
Let me go up from here.
We also received some concerns through email. Jan Thompson asked for prayers or good wishes on behalf of Johannes Fabi and his children. Johannes is a Unitarian Universalist for Social Justice board member and former ICE detainee who has recently suffered setbacks in his immigration proceedings. He is now facing deportation in June of this year. Ed Gomolka's company has several Ukraine-based contractors that he is worried about, particularly a man named Alexandra, who works with him on one of his teams. He lives in Chalice, which is only 98 miles southeast of Kiev. He and his family are okay so far and have no intention of leaving. There are no Russian troops in Chalice at this point, but Ed saw a news item on YouTube from a TV channel in India that showed that missile strikes have reached the city. Covered? I will now light a candle for those joys, concerns, and milestones that have been expressed, and also for those that remain too deeply embedded in our hearts. A lot easier without the mask.
I would like to invite you all into the space of focus, calm, meditation, contemplation, and what many others call a deep ask of prayer. Great Spirit of life, God of so many names and no name at all, we come to this time together to connect more deeply with one another through time, space, and video screen. Great Keeper of time, these times are tough. We are all pressed with the tiring struggle of keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe from a global pandemic. Many of us are also struggling with financial, housing, and food stability. So many of our interpersonal relationships seem past the point of repair in these times. All of these things leave so many of us in emotional and spiritual tatters, longing for a day where the God of our ancestors would swoop down and fix it. Great Maker of love, I have learned in life that this is usually not how you work. I need this time together to remind me that in fact, we are all the vessels of holy will. We are a part of a faith tradition that values our collective might. We know that it is through our inactions that we often uplift each other into salvation, and equally, we recognize that it is through our inactions that we often condemn ourselves and others to various forms of hell. But right now, in this moment of deep connection to one another, though we are miles apart, may we be reminded that our tradition is one that sees each of us as a water droplet that has become an ocean. And while it is very hard for me to imagine that a drop of water matters to the ocean. We believe that every individual droplet can cause ripples that eventually break onto shore. O Waymaker, together let our droplets create tidal waves. I pray for humility to listen to the droplets of others and heed their lived experience, and I pray equally for my lived experience to be heard. I pray that we don't allow exhaustion to be an excuse for perpetuating harm. I pray that we become the answers we so desperately seek, and that we find a way to embody the best ideals from our religious heritage, ideals that sometimes we have historically mocked. Great mender of hearts, please connect me to all who are, who have been, and who will be. Create in me a clear heart, capable of love beyond measure, that like the water droplet begins with me, but whose ripples traverse space and time, amassing with other ripples from other droplets to bring about healing of this one precious and imperfect world. All of these asks we lay here at this collective altar of humanity. And in the name of all that is holy, I ask that we say, Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
As we continue to celebrate and remember and to recall, although we celebrate a celebrated journey of individuals who endured many trials and tribulations, it is proper and befitting that we pause and reflect on those who were separated from their families, their mothers, their fathers, their kindred, many of them to never see them ever again in life. And through the heartbreak and disappointment of that separation, the songs that spoke to their spirit, that really embodied how they felt in that moment, were recorded. And we lift them today in memory of those individuals, those souls, those unsung heroes. Would you reflect with me on a familiar song? Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Page 97, singing the living tradition. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. A long way from home, a long way from home, alone. They me a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home. Well, a long way from home. From home. A long way from home.
In the midst of the hardest days, shaped by the most tedious of moments, when the heart breaks open and the spirit is weary, speak to me of love. When the earth cries out in despair under the weight of trash and debris, choking on poisonous plumes and darkened dust, speak to me of love. When bodies are rejected, dejected and subjugated by fear, misunderstanding, and a sheer lack of imagination, speak to me of love. When humanity is ensnared by virus deadly and individual rights are lauded as supreme, speak to me of love. When in a suspected and supposed democracy where all are equal and the ability to vote is a right, yet we make false idols of procedures and tainted halls for the pure sake of greed and contempt, speak to me then of love. When peoples of hues vast and varied, rich as the cosmos are criminalized, brutalized, and theorized, speak to me then of love. In the midst of the hardest days, shaped by the most tedious of moments, when the heart breaks open and the spirit is weary, lament, dear ones, without apology, for this is all too much to bear. For what is love in a moment such as this? It is a force which drives and sustains us through wilderness valley to the mountaintop. It is the force behind the plow which gives forth abundant nutrients and sustenance. It is the force that rebuilds and makes things new. It is the force that shields us in truth and resiliency. Love indeed is an action. It is the reality of relationality, of mutuality. It calls us into a space of transformation betwixt and between, all while overcoming the teething, tearing desires for perfection. It is grace made known for all of us. Love, lament, and rebuild, dear one. For from the impossible to the real, to the here, to the now, to the love which binds the world together, may love be known here.
We have been worshiping in our refurbished sanctuary since early September. And we are streaming each service to include as many people as possible. We continue to practice indoor masking and social distancing in order to help end the spread of COVID-19 and its variants. During the past year, many of the church's expenses continued. Some have increased since our opening. It is vitally important for the ongoing work and health of the church that each of us fulfill our financial pledge if at all possible. David Rice will speak to us about the change system.
So thank you, Haney. First, Change for Change, as you know, is a way of supporting our social justice outreach ministries. This month's Change for Change offering, or this quarter's Change for Change offering, is going to La Casa. And La Casa is a domestic violence shelter that has the vision of the Los Cruces, which is without domestic violence. In the meantime, they provide shelter and counseling for those who are facing domestic abuse. So that's this month's. Now, the second part of my announcement is Change for Change is something that we do as a congregation. And in this year, we will be selecting the recipients of Change for Change for the period beginning April 1st through the following April 1st. Hopefully we'll all be dancing in the aisles by then. But in the meantime, please nominate your favorite charity for recipient of the Change for Change offering. The process is announced in the current version of the Light, and we'll also broadcast it by email. You have nominations for those charities that need to be submitted by March 13th. And then please put on your calendar March 27th for a Zoom-mediated poll by which we will select the recipients for the Change for Change in the 2022-2023 cycle. So stay tuned, and thank you for your support in the past year.
Will the readers please come forward?
As we prepare to go to the sermon, we'd like to invite you to sing this wonderful hymn of the church, There is More Love Somewhere. Indeed, we all have our responsibility to find that, to search that, to embrace it. So let us join together and sing this wonderful song found on page 95 in the Singing the Living Tradition hymnal. There is more love somewhere. I want to invite you and your homes, your families, to join us. Our families here, we're going to sing together. Join us today as we sing, There is More Love Somewhere.
Don't stop till you find it. There is more love somewhere. I'm going to keep on until I find it. There is more love somewhere. The meaning, some would argue, is almost the same. Elder Henry saying, don't stop until you find it. It's the way I learned the song in my youth, in the churches that I attended. I'm going to keep on until I find it. That's the way I learned the song at Unitarian Universalist congregations. The message, though, is very clear. There is more love somewhere. We must continue on until we find that love, because there is more love somewhere. It is not here, it is somewhere, and we must keep on. We must not give up. We must not give in. We must continue until we find it. It kind of reminds me of this tweet I saw by Joel Leon. He writes, I never saw my mother walk on water, but I saw her wait for the bus in the snow to pay the rent. We define holy differently. And as a hospital chaplain resident, I have lots of time to think about what is holy and what is love. One of my favorite daily duties is joining my voice, thoughts, prayers, and intentions with those of my chaplain colleagues all over the world as we read the prayer requests that have accumulated in the prayer boxes stationed around the hospital from the night before. Some of these requests come from the same people, and we find ourselves transported to them in our daily conversation of lament and thanksgiving, while others are often scribbled and shoved into the box in hopes that something or someone can slow it down or make it stop. Something can shield them from impending doom, as if they are hoping that we chaplains have been equipped with a sort of prayer shield or maybe a love shield that can shield them and theirs from it. And as I make my rounds, I hear people searching for the holy in their hospital rooms when they plead for a cure for what afflicts them. And sometimes I hear people utter a prayer for the holy, for intervention, for help, right before they receive the news of a loved one's death. I see people experience a heaping portion of the holy as they come through horrendous accidents, astonished when they find that they are only a little worse for the wear. And of course, in those moments, everyone seems pretty clear that there's some type of something holy or big that just happened. And it is easy to see that something is holy when it defies what we think of as possible. However, love is holy. It is a holy act that occurs every day. It happens in ordinary encounters between strangers, between colleagues, between families and friends. And not just the romantic love of fairy tales, though there is something special and beautiful and holy in every love and every ever after. But I'm talking about the love that informs, that acts, that empowers, that invites. Love that encourages us to act for the betterment of the interdependent web of all.
Love is an action, says the Reverend Ali Casey Bell, and he means it. Is it a perfect action? Is it the only right action? Will it fix everything that's broken? No. Love doesn't show up that way. Chaplains know that. Reverend Ali knows that love does not show up in perfection, but in presence. And love is an action that is reciprocated indefinitely and without ending. Because we are imperfect and mortal, but our love is forever. That great-great-grandmother who held me once, the one I don't remember, save for the light-soaked sepia photo, I feel the love from her arthritic hands on my back. Even now, when I conjure that image, it is the same love that flows through my imperfect hands when I reach out with wonder and presence, without ending. Abraham Joshua Heschel, whose love, whose wonder, and whose presence, whose faith and history drew him to the work of the civil rights struggle with Reverend Dr. King. Heschel committed to King and to civil rights because that work for liberation was grounded in what he understood as the Hebrew scriptures that traced the exodus from Egypt, drawing attention all the while to the imperfection of the liberator, to the fear and the trembling of Moses, and to the trepidatious backsliding of the Israelites. Heschel committed to the work of liberation, knowing that no step, no action, none was perfect, but that every action on the side of liberation, every act of presence was itself a prayer, a brush with the holy, and love incarnate. I draw closest to Heschel's theology when I remember his testimony about our ego. He laughs at the way we mere humans think that we are the ones seeking the holy, but all the while it is the holy that is seeking us, that is waiting for us, present to us, imperfect us, vow-breaking, mess-making us. And all we need to do is, thank you, Heschel, all we need to do is allow ourselves to be found. My colleague was found by a pumpkin. Found by a pumpkin at one of the most powerful protest marches I've ever been on. We were rounding the streets of Edgewood, New Jersey, days after an unlawful, unjust, injurious arrest of Black Lives Matter leaders. We'd been marching to re-hallow the streets, to assert that no one would turn those leaders round. And my colleague was stopped by a person who presented her with a pumpkin. This is miles into the walk, and there was at least a mile to go, and pumpkins, they're heavy. But this pumpkin said, Black Lives Matter, painted by a child's hand. It was the most improbable, imperfect gift. And that pumpkin was love overflowing. It was everything that you don't want to carry. But it was love's presence incarnate. We had been found by the holy, found by a pumpkin, imperfect offering, waiting for us, our imperfect selves, love without ending.
But what if we only had 30 days to love or lament or rebuild? What if we only had 30 days to love the world into the place that we know it could be? Now that seems like a tall order. It seems a bit overwhelming to consider even. In our Time for All Ages, we talked about how loving can be something that starts small and grows bigger. We talked about how loving is something that might even start at home. We talked about how loving is something we must do as humans. And that feels about right to me. And I don't know about you, but after recently moving to a new city, I can feel that in my bones. But how do I even begin to connect to places to make a difference? I don't know. You see, I often get caught up in my own stuff of looking too uninformed, or even worse, being too needy. I often feel really excited about finding a connection in my local community and finding a way to get back into community, or finding a way to make the ache stop through action. You know the ache, right? That feeling when you read, listen, watch the news, and you are just immersed in the vastness of all that is unjust, all that is wrong, all that needs people to care, people who desire to bring forth change and to create change. Yet there often seems to not be enough resources, people, not enough care, not enough love. That pernicious cynicism can creep in and act as an immobilizer to my very real desire to act. Does that happen to you? In All About Love by Bell Hooks, she speaks of this cynicism as the great mask of the disappointed and betrayed heart. And when I read that, wow, it hit me so hard, because boy, friends, I can feel that. And if we know anything, we know that as a country, we have all been betrayed by democracy, by the way we were founded as a country, by the way this country was set up at all. We know, for honest and for true, we have yet to have an election where all the people who should have had the right to vote have been able to cast a ballot to vote. We know that some voting districts are rigged to make sure that the right people win. We know this already. Yet we also know that in order to move our country to a place where there's a hope for fairness in our democratic process, we must act together. We have to move beyond our discomfort and connect. And now is the time to act. So, whether your aim is to reform the system, or whether your aim is to tear it down and start it over, there is a place for you in this cacophony of loving witness. The decision to side with justice in all of its forms is loving and holy. The decision to side with justice in all of its forms is loving and holy. We have to. And Bell Hooks invites us, she says, to begin by always thinking of love as an action rather than a feeling, she explains, is one way in which anyone using the word in this manner can automatically assume accountability and responsibility. Imagine an accountable and responsible way of loving. We are often, she continues to say, taught we have no control over our feelings, yet most of us accept that we choose our actions, that, she says, intention and will inform what we do. We also accept that our actions have consequences. And she's right. So, with that framework in mind, if we only had 30 days to love, we would have just enough time to make a real connection, just enough time to act, just enough time to look too eager, to be too cynical, to get disappointed, and to remember that our actions have consequences and we are accountable for them.
Love is an action. And as our dear departed Thich Nhat Hanh has shared, my actions are my only true belongings. Imagine that you only have 30 days to love. 30 days to act your love. That is not enough time to get it perfect. Barely enough time, even to attempt to get it right. And aren't those some of the most treacherous stumbling blocks that befall us, Unitarian Universalists, that befall me so incredibly? That seeking after perfection, that craving after getting it right, the right words, the best action, rather than getting active imperfectly because there is no other way than imperfectly when we are human. 30 days to love is plenty of time to let go of those impossibilities of perfect and always just right, and to let love find you. Plenty of time to be present to those who are aching, to scrawl your love on a pumpkin, to defend what you mean when you utter the prayer democracy. Plenty of time to offer your imperfect self for love's unfolding. Plenty of time to let the holy find you in your imperfection, in the work and in the action. Amen.
If you are joining this worship service, are looking for a spiritual home, and are sympathetic with Unitarian Universalist values and principles, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Los Cruces may be the place for you. We believe that when you become a member, you are entering into a warm and deep relationship with the church and all of our members and friends. You are becoming part of something much bigger than any of us. You're becoming a part of a movement to change our community and our world. There are several routes you can take to membership. Speak with me after this in-person service. Call the church and leave a message about your interest, and someone will call you. Or sign the virtual membership book through the link in the electronic order of service.
Haven't we been blessed today by this wonderful service? Well, I want to invite you for a time of celebration as we create the beloved community, loving one another, love in action. Why don't you come and go to that land? What land? The land of freedom, the land of hope, the land of peace, a land where there's love and unity, a land that flows with milk and honey. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. This song, in the context of which it was produced, spoke of that land, a place where racism and sexism and all the isms that seem to divide and separate us were no longer existed. We walk together in the spirit of love and of unity, where one and one we continue to show God's love to each other, hand in hand, walking together. Come on. It's an open invitation. come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Well, this song can be found at 10:18 in Singing the Journey. Why don't you celebrate with me? Come and go with me to that land. Come and go to that land. Come and go to that land. Come and go to that land where I'm bound. Come and go to that land. Come and go to that land. Come and go to that land where I'm bound. There is freedom in that land. There is freedom in that land. There is freedom in that land where I'm bound. Well, there is freedom in that land. There is freedom in that land. There is freedom in that land where I'm bound. There is justice in that land. There is justice in that land. There is justice in that land where I'm bound. Hallelujah. There is justice in that land. There is justice in that land. There is justice in that land where I'm bound. Well, and they'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. Oh, they'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. Hallelujah.
Dearest beloveds, I close as we began by inviting you to consider living as if you only had 30 days to love your life, 30 days to love this world of people, to love this earth. I invite you to love as the belated bell hooks suggested, with a knowing that, quote, love is really more of an interactive process. It's about what we do, not just what we feel. Love is a verb, not a noun. Live on the side of love.
We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
In Virginia, that was a practice when you had a whole bunch of preachers on the desk, and it was at someone's funeral. The lead minister or the home minister would ask them, please limit yourself to 2 minutes.
I think I'm doing behind the scenes. Last meeting.
There is more love.